You would think that the worst thing that can happen in a person's life is having lots of failures, like being broke or getting through a painful divorce, especially if they did all that they could to prevent that from happening. But you'd be mistaken. If you spend some time looking at the life of the most successful people you could see, they are people who made many mistakes and had their fair share of failures. The truth is, we all make mistakes. But the element that makes some people thrive is their mindset and drive to persevere in the face of failures. Watch this video till the end if you want to know how you can improve your mindset. Number 1. Realize that our mindset is important in all our life domains. You might find it surprising, or not, but our mindset is important in all life domains, including family, work and business, relationships, sports, or parenting. The person who emphasized the importance of a growth mindset and wrote an entire book on this subject is psychology professor Carol Dweck in her book, Mindset, which is one of the best contemporary nonfiction books. In her book, she wonderfully illustrates how a fixed mindset limits achievement, while a growth mindset helps people grow their abilities and bear fruit. Besides, our limiting beliefs are also at the core of depression or anxiety. Aaron Beck, the father of cognitive therapy, noticed that just before his patients felt a wave of anxiety or depression, some limiting thoughts quickly flashed through their minds. Number 2. Be curious and look for new challenges. The second way to grow your mindset is to be curious and look for new challenges. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is the belief that in order to achieve success in the desired field, you cannot have any failures. People who have a fixed mindset are afraid to take on new challenges because they might fail. But people with a growth mindset are open to new challenges. Conscious or unconscious, the way we interpret our experiences can set boundaries on what we can achieve. Number 3. Effort is necessary to learn new skills. People who achieve greatness in their field know that hard work and perseverance are the most important assets they have. While most people tend to be devastated by even the smallest setback, people with a growth mindset have developed the ability to persevere even when things are not as they wish. They realize that, despite their best effort, some things are just not meant to happen. But they don't see these as failures, but as opportunities to grow and become better. As Dr. Carol Dweck mentioned in her book, when students believed they can get smarter, they understood that effort made them stronger. Your abilities can grow through your hard work. Putting in extra time and effort can be hard, but that will eventually lead to higher achievement. Think about what types of skills you want to develop and take the time to develop them. They can be improved. Number 4. Don't give up. The more you try, the more your brain works. We cannot stress it enough. Remarkable people who achieved their professional dreams faced lots of obstacles, but they persevere in spite of them. Recent advances in neuroscience have shown us that the brain is a lot more malleable than we thought. People with a growth mindset truly believe intelligence can be developed, as opposed to fixed mindset people who believe intelligence is static. When failing at a task, people with a fixed mindset tend to catastrophize and feel awful about themselves, believing the task was proof of their lack of intelligence. On the other hand, people with a growth mindset embrace challenges, and when they fail, they don't label themselves as being less, but become even more motivated to overcome the obstacles. How do you see yourself when facing a failure at something? Do you see yourself as having a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? Write to us in the comments section. Number 5. Don't take things personally and accept criticism. People will say a lot of things to you, both good and bad. Most of them have nothing to do with you personally. Criticism can lead to growth if you don't let people define who you are. Every high performer understands that feedback is constructive. Moreover, the others are not the only ones who can be critical. The first criticizing voice is in our head. The monologue we are often having in our head is very judgmental. That's why it's healthier to slowly change it with patience in order to become more growth-oriented. If you want to leave your fixed mindset behind, stop trying to look smart in people's eyes, but instead, focus on your desire to learn. Number 6. Accept failure as a necessary part of your growth. In 1836, Abraham Lincoln suffered a total nervous breakdown after a few years of continuing failures. The woman he was about to marry died. He was in debt after a couple of failed businesses, and he was defeated already in politics when he ran for the Illinois state legislature. Lincoln said, "My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure." Abraham Lincoln took failure not as a stumbling block, but as a stepping stone for his success. He refused to quit. He saw failure as an opportunity to grow. Lincoln's story is extraordinary and edifying, but surprisingly full of failures as well. As Dr. Carol Dweck showed in Mindset, much of what we think of as our personality actually grows out of this mindset. When facing a challenge, a fixed mindset person will automatically think that it's too hard, while a growth mindset person will believe he can train his brain. The main idea behind a growth mentality is that intelligence, and thus capability, can be developed. Number 7. Understand that your brain and your intelligence are not fixed, but flexible. While people with a fixed mindset think intelligence is fixed, people with a growth mindset think intelligence is flexible. Your brain and your intelligence is like a muscle. It can be trained. It can become smarter over time. Therefore, challenges are to be embraced, not avoided. We can find new opportunities every day to learn and grow smarter. Next time people outdo you, don't just assume they are more talented or smarter than you. Most of the time, people just work harder, are more persevering, or have better strategies than you. Anyone can get smarter. Your abilities are determined by your effort and your attitude. Research into the plasticity of the brain showed how connectivity between neurons can change with experience. No matter how clever you are, you can always change it a bit. On the other hand, people with a fixed mindset enjoy working more on tasks that can perform well without putting in a big amount of effort. They even see effort as proof that they are not as intelligent and talented. But those with a growth mindset value effort and perseverance in the face of obstacles. They even see failures as motivating factors. Number 8. Have a strong desire to learn. Most likely, we are all a mix between a fixed and a growth mindset. But in general, a growth mindset will enjoy more working on tasks when they have to think harder. But in a fixed mindset, setbacks label you. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt less intelligent than others? It happens to all of us sometimes. How do you know you are in a fixed mindset? When you feel overwhelmed and hopeless on a regular basis when facing obstacles, you can be sure you are trapped in a fixed mindset. When encountering a failure, it is normal to feel pain. It is okay to feel powerless for a brief moment. But don't let your changing emotions translate into hopeless behaviors. Get into a growth mindset. Don't judge yourself. Instead, think about how you can learn and improve. Don't label yourself, but don't label others also. Number 9. See failures as opportunities. Generally speaking, people with a growth mindset see setbacks and failures as an opportunity for self-reflection and analysis about how they can do better next time, while fixed mindset people tend to blame others when things go wrong. What if you realize that you have a fixed mindset? Let me tell you that it's never too late to develop a growth mindset. We can take on challenges and learn from them, therefore increasing our abilities and achievements in the future. The world is constantly giving us new challenges, and we need to adapt. Number 10. Leave your comfort zone. Do things that you'll learn from, even if you make mistakes. Take control of your abilities and your motivation. On the contrary, People with a fixed mindset don't like to put in extra effort because they fear that they might feel inferior to their colleagues. Instead, they bet everything on their talent. For people with a growth mindset, though, when something is hard, it makes them spend more time on that task, not less. They see themselves as a work in progress and not a perfect finished product. Now that you watched the video so far, which mindset do you naturally gravitate towards? You may be a combination of both, but most people tend to gravitate toward one or the other. Do you have a tendency to protect yourself and blame others? Or do you believe it's your responsibility to change your abilities through practice and perseverance? Number 11. Stop trying to prove to others that you are somebody. As Stanford psychologist Dr. Carol Dweck showed in her book Mindset, worrying about being a nobody is not the mindset that motivates and sustains champions. They also tend to be more flexible and adaptable, and they don't need to prove that they are better than others. They are not motivated and they don't get their value from winning. Even in the case of failure, they don't see it as a permanent misfortune. If you want to develop a more growth mindset, go after your goals with all that you have, without worrying about the outcome. One of the most important characteristics of a growth mindset is the belief that any setback or obstacle can be overcome. Champions are not interested in impressing others. They just want to become better and improve their skills all the time. Number 12. Learn how to receive feedback. Receiving feedback can be painful, but asking for feedback from those who can teach you the skills you want to learn is crucial for success. Even if they receive constructive feedback or criticism, people with a growth mindset take it well. They focus on self-development and take responsibility. Remember, becoming a growth mindset person can take time and practice. If you want to cope well with setbacks, don't stay in your fixed mindset. It is quite hard, if not impossible, to shift all of a sudden to a growth mindset. That's why you have to stop criticizing yourself, which, by the way, it's a fixed mindset characteristic. As neuroscience shows us, our brain is adaptable, having what is called neuroplasticity. Those who have a growth mindset know that it takes time for the potential to flourish. Given that the brain is like a muscle, we need challenges and hurdles to grow. People with a growth mindset are energized and motivated by criticism, seeing it as an opportunity to become better. Number 13. Don't believe that success makes you a better person than other people. As Dr. Dweck mentioned in her book, one of the greatest athletes who had every reason to feel special, Michael Jordan, said the following when his return to basketball caused a very big excitement. "I was very shocked with the level of intensity my coming back to the game created. People were praising me like I was a religious cult or something. It was very embarrassing. I'm a human being just like everyone else." Jordan knew how hard he worked to develop his abilities. He was willing to grow and master his basketball skills. He was a person who fought and grew, not someone who was inherently better than others. The fame didn't change his mindset. Number 14. Accept and love yourself the way you are. In the fixed mindset, if you succeed, you are a success. But if you fail, you are a failure. Even in the growth state of mind, failure may be a painful experience. Just don't let this define you. Be convinced that you can be improved and be prepared to learn from setbacks and challenges. Don't let your experiences define you. People with a growth mindset view themselves as valuable as others, even if they face countless failures, and view each failure as an opportunity to learn, to become more skillful at what they do. Number 15. Identify and change your limiting beliefs. This is a personal issue we all have to deal with. We all have developed because of our past experiences. Some dysfunctional belief or limiting thoughts, and most of the time, we're not even aware of them. Most people developed a pattern of irrational or dysfunctional thoughts that took possession of their subconscious mind without them even knowing. Those beliefs limit our potential. That's why it is very important to identify them and replace them with more functional and adaptive ones. One way to do that is through cognitive behavioral therapy or reading books about the subject. We'll let you think of all the 15 ways you can change your mindset, and we hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you'd like to watch similar videos in the future, please like the video and subscribe.